Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Patty Giarrusso, and this is Let's Talk Pets on Society Bites Radio. Today, we welcome to the show Katie Albright, not to be confused with our last week's show, Kat Albrecht. And Katie is one of Kat's students through the Missing Pet Recovery, or her organization is Missing Pet Recovery Services, and she went through the Missing Animal Response Network course. So it's going to be interesting talking with Katie today. She's a professional pet recovery specialist, and she was certified in 2016 through the Animal Response Network, and she's been working with owners of missing cats and dogs in Colorado and remotely in other areas since that time, and recently moved to Oregon. And she creates search plans for owners of missing dogs and cats and helps on the ground with humane trapping as needed. Now, when the Oregon fires exploded in early September of this year, she found a team that was willing, that welcomed her to help rescue animals in the burn zone. And we're going to talk about what happened with that. She particularly was there to help with the lost cats, as she has a cat detection dog that she's going to tell us about. So welcome to the show, Katie.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm very interested to hear your story. You know, we all were aware of all these horrific fires out west, and I haven't really spoke to anyone that's helped, you know, with the recovery of the pets out that way. So I'm interested to hear about that.
Yes. What can I tell you first?
Well, so it says you traveled to Springfield for the holiday farm fires, and tell us about that. Like, what did you do with your dog, and how did you go about it? Did you know of particular pets that were missing, or you just went about to different places to search for them? How did it all work out?
Well, I was sitting over here in Bend, Oregon, where I now live. And when the wildfires broke out, they all broke out around the same time. And so as I'm here watching the news and listening to the stories, I thought maybe there's something I can do to help. So I had recently moved here, and all my stuff was in boxes, and I contacted some people out of the Springfield area to come and help. And they agreed, and so I took a day or two to pack up and headed over there. And at that time, there were checkpoints in the area, and so I went up with some teams, and we were able to get into homes. The first plan was to get into homes and to get those cats and dogs, and, well, no dogs on my end. They had basically been evacuated, but the cats were still left at home, and we were able to retrieve those cats and get them out of the burn zone because those owners weren't able to come back. So that's what we did initially.
Okay. And I know that it wasn't always happy endings, that sometimes you had to go in and recover the kitties that didn't make it, right?
That was more towards the end. The first thing we did was get those cats out of their homes. And then towards the end, it was trapping, and it's still going on, so there really is no end. Trapping, and then I did use Franklin on some properties where there wasn't a lot of activity. Find some deceased cats, and we were able to get some owners some closure.
All right, tell us about Franklin. He's your cat detective dog. Is that detection dog? Is that his main purpose? Does he find other things? I know it's difficult sometimes because the dogs, you know, I've heard talking with other people that have recovery animals that cats are easier with the dogs to use. Is that the case with your dog?
Well, he's an area search dog, so he's trained a little bit differently than some of the trailing dogs. He is trained to find all cats, not just he's not scent specific, and so he is just trained to find all cats in an area. So it's a really interesting way to go out and search. And there are times when he is really a great tool to use, but like anything that you use in lost pet recovery, he's one of many tools that we use. And sometimes, you know, not the best tool to use. There's a lot of other things we can do to help people find the lost cats. We were just walking up the road checking on a 16-year-old cat that I had just been thinking about this cat for many weeks. And I had a 13-year-old protege with me, and we went up and we were just walking around and checking the feeding stations. And I had been on this property many, many times before, but I had Franklin with me, and we got on that property, and he just turned his head, and lo and behold, unfortunately, there was the little 16-year-old kitty there that didn't make it. So. And my friend who's was over on the neighbors, talking to the neighbors, because we had a feeding station up there, and I can just remember calling over to her and just, Franklin found the kitty, and it's just so bittersweet. I mean, it brings closure, but it's just so heartbreaking, but we'd been after that cat for a long time, and so we were able to gather that cat and to, get her cremated for the owner. And so there is a little bit of a blessing there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard when there is no closure because you just don't know, and so some people hold their hope, which I always like and want them to do, versus giving up, because you never know. I mean, we have these silly cats that just all of a sudden being gone, 6 weeks or something, just trot back home. And it always amazes me, and one of them that we just had was an old cat like this, and I really didn't think this kitty would be found again, and it just came back one day, and the lady thinks that it somehow got closed in, her garage or her shed, or some neighbors, somehow got closed in somewhere because it was able to come home. But so why don't you tell us some of the challenges that you find doing lost pet recovery, because it is not an easy thing to do.
Well, it's not. Right before we came on here, of course, I just got a message that one of the people I was working with found her kitty deceased. A neighbor had heard a fight, and we now know that he was likely displaced, and then he ended up being hit by a car. So that's awfully sad. Again, the closure is something that's important. There are a lot of challenges, and there's a lot of really great stories, like you just said. Last night, I'm an admin. I don't run the page, but I am an admin for a lost pet page here, and there was a cat that the people at a resort just found, and just a very vocal, beautiful black cat, and they thought that it would belong to somebody who was living in an RV. So, people will get on the page and say, I'll take that cat. Not that I'll foster it, but I'll take it and I'll get it chipped. So, of course, I intervened late at night, and the cat was dropped off here. I was able to scan it, and because I'm a Microchip Hunter with Lost Dogs of Texas, I was able to access the information. The owner information was out of date, but found out this morning that the owner came forward. I was happy to help them update their chip, and the interesting thing is they had just written a memorial for him on their Instagram.
Oh my gosh. And that's, I'm a Microchip Hunter here. I help out with Maryland too, and sadly, I'm very busy just keeping up with my own unregistered chips with my organization. But we had a good one the other day with the microchips that the woman taking the dog or the kitty in was told it was unregistered, and I never believed that. So I checked, and it wasn't. And it did take a little time to track the person down, but it was her mom's cat, and they had just moved, or no, her neighbor just moved, and the cat had crawled into the moving van.
Oh my
gosh. I know. So the kitty was from Tampa and ended up over here in Palmetto, which is just north of Bradenton, Sarasota area. And, it was brought into one of our local vet clinics, and the woman that scanned it happens to be one of my volunteers, and she sent me the chip number. And the lady, she didn't answer the phone, because I find, and you probably do these days, that people don't answer their phones.
They don't.
text them or, leave a message and hopefully to listen to it. And she didn't answer her phone. She didn't answer her text, but I got a call back very quickly. I think maybe it was because I emailed her. And she was hysterically crying, that I cannot believe that the cat's been found. She, felt she would never see her cat again. And so, the challenges are one thing, but these stories that help keep us going, I think, are another.
Well, having these two back-to-back stories for me within a very short time frame, it really is a roller coaster, and it really does take somebody who's pretty even-keeled to keep doing this, because there are heartbreaking stories, but then there are such wonderful stories out there. And I recently had one out of Grand Lake, Colorado. Also, Oregon was on fire. Lived in Colorado for many years, and I had contacted Grand County to see if they had any fire cats that they needed help with or consulting with or anything. And I'm not an expert at all. I've had some experience recently, but I saw on their page that this cat had been found. It was trapped 3 days before the fire ripped through this campground, which is amazing because the campground is not there. And I asked them if I could help. They don't know me, but they trusted me, and I was able to track down the owner in Denver. And that cat had been missing since July. So, it's just, it's just the nature of everything. And so it's hard. It's such gratifying work, but it definitely is emotional.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, and a lot of times I have volunteers that will tell me I need to take a break because, it comes in spurts, I think. We'll have really good stories, reunite, and then we'll have a slew of, deceased pets. And it's so, you get your hopes up this one's going to be found, and you might get attached to one for some reason. You don't always know why, and then you find out it didn't make it, and it's heartbreaking. It just is heartbreaking. But we have to keep doing it. We have to keep doing it.
I agree. And I don't know why some of these pets, like the 16-year-old cat up in the burn zone, I just had such an affinity, and I love senior pets anyway, and so I had just had high hopes that she would make it.
Yeah.
That's
well, why don't you tell us, some of the specific things like you mentioned the use of technology and equipment in lost pet recovery. What specifically or types of equipment and technology do you suggest people use, or what do you use?
Well, just in, working with owners, we use game cameras a lot because there's really no way to know what's going on if you don't have a camera. And people do have Rings, and they have surveillance cameras, and they have that. But without, some sort of surveillance device, you really don't know. I had a case in Utah that I was helping with, and she had an orange tabby that was missing, and she kept chasing false leads of orange tabbies until I told her to get a $20 camera from Walmart, one that you plug in, and that cat had been trying to get home every night.
Aw.
So, it's just, really important to know what's going on. Game cameras are an excellent tool. They just really are. You can see what's going on if you have other animals coming to a feeding station. You can see what's going on with your traps. And I'm just a one-person, I'm not a nonprofit, and I'm not really for-profit at this time. So there's some great equipment that some of the larger rescues have, and they use Arlo Go cameras and different things. But I make do with what I have. But I really like the use of cameras. I think it's a great technology. And then I did go down to Southern Oregon and spent some time, and I was able to train a little bit with Shannon Jay down there, and he is a fire cat recovery guy. He claims he's not an expert, but he has about 2,000 hours in fire zones. So I was able to work alongside him, and he has some technology that's really wonderful. It's a little bit expensive. It was, donations that allowed him to get that. One of